While I don't do a lot of unboxings on this channel, today I'm excited to unbox the ZTE Axon 30. You see, the last ZTE product that I actually used was the ZTE Axon 7 from quite a few years ago. And while it was a great little metal phone, a lot has changed since then. What's particularly interesting about this phone is the fact that it has an under-display camera. And there's only a few phones on the market now that have under-display cameras. One of them being my Fold 3. And while I love my Fold 3, unfortunately the under-display camera is a little bit disappointing and less than what I expected. Notably because it's pretty easy to see when you put a white screen on top of it. And the camera quality is fine but not excellent. So we'll be able to compare these cameras side by side to see just how good they are. But let's go ahead and get into the unboxing. There it is. That is unlike just about any other phone that I've seen on the market, and it feels really different. Let's just take a look really quick in the box to see if there's anything particularly interesting. Okay, looks like we got fast charger and cable, pretty straightforward. But let's go ahead and give first impressions of the phone itself. In terms of design, this phone is interesting. It's got a very wedge shape where it's larger in the back and quite small in the front. And so it feels a little bit awkward to hold on to. The back, you see there is a massive, massive primary camera, and then it looks like 3 secondary lenses, and we'll walk through what those lenses do in a second. And then it is very decorated in that it's got Axon branding across the side with kind of a diagonal pattern across the sides. It's a very, very glossy glass, which is a little bit worrisome. You can already see that I've added a lot of fingerprints to the back glass here, which means that it's probably going to be difficult to keep this clean. And since many other manufacturers are changing kind of universally to kind of frosted glass backs like Apple and Samsung and several others, then it's kind of disappointing to see a glossy glass back that only attracts more fingerprints. And I've noticed that glossy glass backs also show scratches worse. I've scratched up my iPhone quite a few times, but I don't see a lot of scratches on the glass unless I really go looking for them. I generally like the design, but it doesn't feel incredibly premium. It feels probably premium for a couple of years ago, and then otherwise it's kind of basic. And then the front panel, you can see that the bezels are not completely equal. It looks like the top and bottom bezels are a little bit larger, notably the bottom bezel. And right away, you can just kind of see the camera underneath the screen. You can see that the screen is just a slightly off-white. I don't know if my camera is actually picking it up, but the screen is just a slightly off-white. You can see the discoloration, but compared to the Samsung, it is not very distracting. So let's just skip through this process and get an experience of taking a picture. I will set a fingerprint just so I can see how well the under-display fingerprint sensor works. And I'm already kind of worried about the vibration motor here. If you look on the black, if you just hold it in the light the right way, kind of in the reflection, you can actually see that the camera is there, but is very faint. Comparatively, if I look at the Samsung looks like a camera, and granted, you have to kind of be looking at it slightly off. No, you can see the Samsung camera at any time. Okay, and then this is the camera quality. I don't know how well y'all can see it. Yeah, it looks like I'm glowing. There's like a glowing effect. I don't know how much of it is beauty mode. Let's see if we can turn off beauty mode if there is it. Yeah, that is a very different photo. The Axon, granted the Samsung clearly is doing a lot of smoothing. You can just see how smooth my cheeks are, but by comparison, the Axon looks to be just losing a whole bunch of actual quality. Even with the kind of night mode turned off on the Samsung, it still looks a little bit more natural colored than the ZTE. And I love how ZTE automatically puts the watermark on their photos. I mean, it's just so tacky. I mean, let me know in the comments if you prefer it, but I don't know who would ever want to keep it on. Yeah, maybe a little bit more quality. It doesn't lose as much detail in my shirt, but otherwise it's It's not a big difference. Okay, let's go back to the video. Honestly, like even in the video, like you can't really tell that there's something there. I actually had to go looking because I didn't know which way my fold was flipped, and once I went looking, that's when I actually saw. And it is noticeable when you go looking for it, but it's not very distracting. I think only on pure white surfaces is it really distracting. So let's see if I can find a white. Okay, so that's a primarily white background, and it is noticeable, but not really that bad. By comparison, let's go ahead and find the same part of the video in here. It's actually a little bit more noticeable in that like I can distinguish that those pixels are a different color, but I prefer it because it is kind of uniform, whereas the Samsung has this kind of screen door effect that is a little bit distracting when you look at it in different angles. So outside of the under display camera, there's a couple other things I want to call out about this phone. First of all, it has a plastic back, and honestly, I didn't know this initially, but now that I actually feel it and tap it, then I actually do distinguish that it is plastic. It feels a little bit less premium in the hand, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference. I wish, again, that it was matte, but I'm not really worrying that much. Instead of the top-end Snapdragon 888 processor, this instead has a Snapdragon 870, which is slightly worse, but it's not going to make the difference for the average person. I think the operating system at first glance looks fine, but it's something that I definitely will need to get used to. I'm not really used to operating systems from Poco and Xiaomi and other Chinese manufacturers, but on first glance, this looks to be significantly muted and significantly more stock-like than a lot of Xiaomi devices, for example. But I'll have to dive in to see if that's actually the case. In general, I like the feel of it so far. It's fast enough, it's smooth, it's generally okay to hold in hand. Again, the frame feels very, very off. Like a lot of kind of cheaper phones, it seems that the screen actually sits on top of the frame rather than being kind of integrated with the frame, which results in a little bit less premium of an experience, but we'll have to see if that carries through. I'm not so sure yet whether I'm going to do a full review on it. Let me know down in the comments if you really want me to. I think it looks to be a great phone and everything, but it doesn't really do anything other than the under display camera. And so I don't know if it'd be perfect for what I typically look for in a phone, but let me know if there is something that I'm missing or something that y'all really want to know. With that, keep an eye out for some of my future reviews. I'm going to be reviewing the Z Flip 3, which I've got in here. I've got the Z Fold 2, which I'm going to be finishing my review pretty soon here, and a lot of other content coming your way. So thanks for sticking around, and hope you guys continue to like the channel. See you later.